Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome back for this week's episode of Podiatry Marketing. With me, as usual, is my co-host, Big Jim Mack, all the way from Canada. How you doing today, Jim?
Feeling bigger than ever. No, things are good here in Canada. No complaints. It's a hot Canadian summer, but I'll take that over snow and ice. So no worries here.
I can't wait to visit your area, and then when I do, we can do a live. We can do some live episodes.
Yeah, we'll do some live episodes from the snow and the cold outside. Maybe we'll have an outside episode.
So, Jim, what is today's topic?
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about marketing for senior podiatrists that are eyeing kind of succession of their practice or maybe putting it up for sale. I think a lot of the times we've been talking about our marketing, we really focus on the why behind it. We really
Yeah,
try to make people understand. We're not just saying, go do all these things, go all do these things as tactics strategy. We really try to make people step back and think about why would they even consider marketing their practice. And one thing we haven't touched on yet is maybe someone's nearing the end of their career. They've enjoyed the practice. They've enjoyed taking care of patients, but now maybe they're 5 or 10 years away from retirement. And it's a motivating factor to, okay, why would someone coming into your community not just open their own shingle? What's the opportunity for you to basically build up your practice in a way that not only to the public, but also to the prospective buyers of your practice really show off the great care you provide? Because anytime you're either trying to hire an associate or looking to sell your practice, you're marketing to those people as well. So I think it was really
yeah.
important to talk a little bit about that today and some ways to improve the look and feel of your practice to really entice and really attract potential either associates or potential buyers of your practice.
Yeah, I've heard some podiatrists, they've had a business for 35 years, and in the end they go, oh, I can't sell it. I'm trying to sell my bit, yeah, because they made a decision like in 2023, oh, I want to sell it in 2023. And all of a sudden they go, there's no one around. No one wants to buy it. And it's because I think what you just said then, they haven't thought about it years ahead. I want to sell this business. Now, how can I, when I'm marketing this to the general public, how can other podiatrists see what I'm doing and go, wow, that'd be a business I'd like to own at some stage?
No, that's a great example there. And I think whenever I look at older, it starts with obviously we're talking, I talk about kind of things in the digital realm, right? As the digital channels become more popular, you show up on Google, you show up in these places. If someone is considering to buy a practice in a local area and either you don't show up, that's really bad. But probably
Yeah.
almost even worse than that is when they show up and it looks like the website's from like 1995. And it just really shows that it's a huge kind of signal to people that if they're not willing to either spend money or really present a professional look to their practice in this way, like what's actually going on within that practice? Is that even a practice I would even consider wanting to be an associate with or to buy? So that first impression, that digital first impression is really important. And like I said, the number of, not to slag on any website builders, but things like Office
Oh,
Site,
no,
I can always
slag away. Slag. Just
well,
slag on it.
there's a provider called Office Site, right? Like these are like the websites are built in 1995 or 2000. And while
Yeah.
they were good back then, things have changed. Like we have video, high quality imagery, just not these cookie cutter websites that's really not going to show personality. If it looks like it's from 1995, good luck. You're going to probably in that category of patient or a podiatrist who feel like no one wanted to buy my practice or no one wanted to do it. But if you're proactive, knowing that it's 5, 10 years out and you're starting to take steps, making a plan is that first step to moving in that direction.
Yeah, I think for some reason, I think some older podiatrists look at their practice like it's an old house and it's a fixer-upper. Oh, yeah, here, this house, great house, strong bones, but it's there for the person that wants to build it up. And I think there's two problems with that. Is there's some younger podiatrists coming through who I don't want to build it up. I want to buy a business that's already really profitable. Because if it's really old, then does it mean that all your patients are all old and outdated as well? And what am I really buying? Am I just buying headaches? And I think from the other point, if you can lift the whole profile of your business and make it look better, one, it's more appealing to the person, but you'll sell it for more.
No, that's a huge thing. Not only is it I talked about the digital aspect of things, but if you're the upkeep of your practice, of your clinic, what does the clinic
Yeah.
look like? Has it been redecorated in the last 4 decades, right? Does the exterior look like professional? Does it look like a high quality practice? And there's definitely ways to improve things gradually over time. It doesn't have to be all at once. It is one of those things where it is really important to consider those things. Otherwise, you're just like you said, someone's just going to see no value in it and just move on and either open up their own practice or maybe try to buy someone else's practice in town.
Yeah, they want to know, does the toothless receptionist come with the clinic, with the business? Yeah,
Hopefully
because some of
not.
them, some of them are just outdated. But there was a story in Cairns here. There was, should I say it was in Cairns here, or should I just say there was a podiatry clinic that I know. Could have been local, I won't say. And the person had the business for a long period of time, and then they were trying to sell the business, trying to sell it to the other podiatrists that actually worked for them. I think it was appealing to them. And they thought, I can spend the same amount of money and just do my own thing. Whereas I think there's a lot of podiatry businesses out there that got a lot of potential. They just need to get it right.
No, 100%. And I think there are huge opportunities for podiatrists that have been doing. I was talking to a podiatrist recently, and he purchased a practice. And one of the reasons he decided to purchase it is that during the last 25 years, this clinic, while they didn't have the most amazing website, or and their clinic was in decent shape, but the thing that actually attracted him the most to it was they had 25,000 emails. He said this practice that had been gathering emails of patients with permission over the course of 25 years with that many emails, it's super valuable because let's say you send an
Gold
email
mine.
blast. Yeah, it's a huge gold mine. Like you send an email blast and you get a 1% appointment rate or a 0.5%. Like you do the math. It's, that can just continually rake in new patients. They tell their friends, their network of people. Obviously, for the younger people on this practice, there's definitely ways to evaluate. Obviously, there's ways to hire companies to evaluate practices and those things, but understanding that how much time and effort they put into the physical building, their online presence, things like their email lists, all these things are super important when deciding whether to buy a new practice or to start a new practice or to buy someone's current practice. And I think those are little details that sometimes are overlooked by the people selling, but also sometimes overlooked by people buying.
Yeah, and it's really important, like you said there, it's not just the database itself and how they use it. But if I was looking at a podiatry clinic, one of my questions would be, show me where your patients come from. And I want to see the referral sources. And I'm not talking just from GPs and physios. How are these patients finding your clinic? How are they coming in? What are you actively marketing to constantly bring that flow of patients in? If you've got a really good marketing plan behind the business, that's what I'm paying for. I want to know that you're going to give me that marketing plan. So when I buy your business, I can keep that going and I will get the same results. It's not reliant just on you as the podiatrist.
No, I think that's really important. I think it's also really important to really continue to build the network of what are those referral networks you have in place, whether it be professional or the local businesses in your area. I think it is one of those things where, like you said, 5 or 10 years out, it may feel like a time when you really want to slow down or you may want to like turn off some of this stuff. But really that by turning those things off, you're doing a disservice to yourself and to the potential person that either may want to buy it or bring on an associate. Because if you basically haven't been networking or connecting with other new healthcare professionals in your local area for a decade, that makes it a lot less appealing, right? If you don't have doctors, referrals, and things coming into your office on a consistent basis, you can't really fake that kind of stuff with someone. I guess you could try, but it's really important to continue to do those things. The networking from your professional network, but then also, do you have a residency in your area, or do you have friends or colleagues that had been associated with residencies? Because it's not going to be super easy to find someone to buy either. Maintaining those networks of people that are associated with residency programs or people that are in large metropolitan areas that might have more residents or students coming out of those areas. Maybe you've been yearly, you go to the school, you go back to your school for a awards night. Actually, this year I hate to say it out loud, but my 20th Shoal College reunion is this year. If
You
you're
old
trying
bastard.
I know I'm ancient these days, right? But
Yeah.
it is one of those things by providing value to your school and kind of staying connected to the alumni network. These things can come in hugely valuable when you're ready to sell your practice. Obviously, the digital stuff is important, your physical building, but it's really important not to downplay the importance of your network and those people that you've gone to school with or are in your local area to really help you when it's time to consider making that gradual transition or selling your practice.
It all comes down, and we have mentioned it before on the podcast, is dig the well before you need the water. is a lot of people, you can't wait until you're thirsty before you start digging a well. By the time you dig the well, you'll be dead. This happens when it comes to selling your practice, is you've got to dig the well before you need the water. At some stage, you probably want to sell your business, whether it's 5 years time, 10 years time, or 15 years time. So start start digging the well now before you want to sell it. Like you said, the online, your online presence, your networking, your referral sources, all these things are stuff that you need to be doing over a number of years. And then when it's time to sell, you've got everything in place.
And I think it's also important to know that you're not in this alone. If you're, I compare it to buying and selling a house. Most people will maybe have 3 or 4 opportunities during their lifetime to make some of these big purchases, right? And I know that when I bought my first house, I felt like if I would have known that, or if I like that little thing here, and I don't regret it. Definitely the more times you can do things, the better you're going to be at it. But, considering having some expert help or some people to kind of bounce ideas off of, whether it be a consultant or someone to help you advise in these different areas. For example, you don't have to go learn digital marketing. You don't have to go become a Google Ads expert. That's not what we're saying here today. But you need to go find someone who is that can help you. I happen to know a guy, not to toot my own horn here, but at least getting an audit as far as how do I compare to what else is out there, or to other local clinics, or other clinics that I know I had. Maybe you have like friends that have sold a clinic and you wanted to see what did their website look like when they sold it. So there's ways to do that on the digital side, but also there's companies, there's probably consultants out there that handle these kind of clinic sales, or finding an associate or a potential a successor for your practice. And you're probably only going to sell your practice one time, right? So you want to make sure that you get the maximum amount of value out of it, or 5 times.
I've done it 5 times. I can't believe I've sold my clinics 5 times. I've sold.
What lessons did you learn, Tyson, by selling 5 different clinics?
The biggest lesson is you dig the well before you need the water. So my first clinic I sold was on the Gold Coast. Had to sell it because I had a hand injury and I couldn't work anymore. So I maintained the clinic for about 12 months and I desperately tried to hang on to it. And I was pretty much a fire sale. I had to sell it. And surprisingly, I got okay money for it, but not as much as what it was probably worth. But I walked away thinking, okay, I'm pretty happy with that. The next one that I sold was in Mackay. And I'd sold half of it to start with, brought in a partner, and then we didn't really work out too well. So then I sold the other half to him. Still made pretty good money on it, but not as much as what I probably could have. The third one I sold is I set up an opposition to my old clinic in Mackay. There's a long story behind that. But Mackay's 800 kilometers away from Cairns. So the clinic was going really good, going great, but I got tired of the travel and having to look after it. And even though I hadn't been to the business for maybe 12 months before I sold it, but it was still going really well. Sold that for that was a good price. Then I sold one on the Sunshine Coast, which was 1,200 kilometers away. Oh no, 1,800 kilometers away. So I like to do things in distance. And same thing. It was just the distance that really bugged me. So I sold that as a fire sale just to get rid of it. Good part is these clinics are still all going, which is great. So the bones of the clinics are good, but the Cairns one, when I sold the Cairns one, was one of those ones, okay, it was a far better business than any of the other ones I'd ever done. But it was about 18 months before I sold it that I went, I really want to sell this business and I want to cash in big time on it. So I sat down and I worked out a plan of what I was going to do for like 18 months before I started throwing out the feelers out there going, who's interested in buying this? Now I had a rough idea who wanted to buy it because I'd said to them no 3 times beforehand. But I ended up selling it for probably 3 times more than what they were originally offering it to me 3 or 4 years before that, because I sat back and went, where's the value in this business? What is it that they're offering? And then I just kept working on the value and I just kept adding value to the business. And as I did that, the business just kept growing. So by the time I got ready to sell, from when they were first talking to me, it was a far more valuable business. And they got a good deal and I got a great deal. What they did with it afterwards is entirely up to them. But I got a really good deal from it. So anyone who's thinking about selling your business, you've really got to step back and plan it out over a period of time so you get maximum value for that practice.
No, that's sage advice. I think there's a lot to take away from that. And I think it's great that you had 5 different opportunities and learned from each of them. I hope that the people listening to this show will take some of that advice and that wisdom and use it towards selling their own practice. But I think, like you talked about, I think the real key to this entire episode that we're doing here is really the planning portion.
Mm.
Planning. If you don't plan, if you're just expecting to get up to where you want to retire and then just think you're going to sell it, you're going to be really disappointed. But if you take the time to figure out where's that value, how can you continue to build that value, whether it be through a professional looking website, is it like your physical location looks great, and then also increasing the amount of revenue generated in the practice and doing things you love to do will really help attract a potential successor, whether that's an associate you sell it to, or maybe it's an outside, someone starting a clinic, or maybe it's some of these different venture capital firms that are buying up clinics these days. But there's definitely a lot of different options. And I think it's really important. Like I said, there's different types of motivation we have for doing marketing. A lot of it's want to get a certain type of patient or want to get more patients. But the opportunity to attract a potential associate or successor to your practice is a huge other kind of motivation, and it shouldn't be taken too lightly.
Yeah. And I've heard some people say the day you start your practice should be the first day you're thinking about when at some stage you're going to sell your practice. So right from the beginning, think about what is your exit strategy going to be. And it might be 30 years time. It doesn't mean you're going to sell it in 5 years. I never expected when I opened up my first clinic in 1989 that I would have sold it in 1991, 2 years later. It was never part of my plan. But sometimes things just happen that's out of your control. And I think that's the part that's really important. What you're talking about is putting those foundations in with your marketing and your networking and your referral systems, because you don't know what's going to happen next week or next month. And if all of a sudden there's a health problem and you're forced into selling like I was with my hands, even if you're forced, if you've got all these good foundations in there, you will still sell it for more. You will still attract more people who want to buy that business.
Yeah, it's like that, like talking about the rundown house, right? If you're,
Yeah.
waiting for that time and then you're just we're just gonna do a fixer upper, we're gonna do amazing, renovation here. It's much easier just to do little chunks at a time, right? Or have a plan, do some little things gradually over time, and then it's not that thing where you have to you run into an emergency or something happens and then you're feeling stuck and have to do a fire sale. There's definitely ways to gradually build out and make this as smooth of an opportunity for you to sell your practice and to transition as possible.
Yeah. And one other mistake I made when I sold the last business in Cairns, which worked out well in the end, was it was supposed to go through in May. That's when the sale was supposed to happen. So knowing it was going in May, I eased back on my marketing leading up to May, thinking it's going to be theirs. I don't need to be spending all this money. It didn't end up settling until August. So May, June, July, those 3 months and probably 2 months leading up to that, I really slackened off my marketing and my figures plateaued a little bit. So I look back and I go, wow, that 5-month period from say March, April through to August when it finally sold, I probably lost money over that period because I thought, oh, this is a done deal. Now that could have fallen through.
Right.
If that had fallen through, what momentum had I lost? So to me, if you're thinking of selling business, just run right through to the finish line. Just do it the way you would do it, because if it falls through, you can just keep going. And if it doesn't fall through, you're handing something over and you've made maximum amount right up until that day of the sale.
No,
I told
that's
you
good
I've made a lot of
advice.
mistakes.
I couldn't believe it, but now definitely you bared your soul here. I appreciate your openness and honesty with those things.
This is what I like about the podcast. If someone can just take one thing away from every episode, whether it's you're talking about making sure you're looking after your marketing, or that, hey, if I'm selling the clinic, don't just assume it's a foregone conclusion it's going to sell. Any of those little things could make a huge difference just to their long-term future and the future of their family.
No, for sure. I think it is hugely important to, like you said, things happen. Life happens, so you have to adjust to it. And I think running through the finish line is a great analogy there.
What did Ned Kelly say? Such is life. Do you know who Ned Kelly is?
They used to have a steakhouse. It's called Ned Kelly Steakhouse. And where I grew up, I knew it was an Australian steakhouse, but I have no idea who Ned Kelly is.
Oh, Ned Kelly is our most famous bushranger.
Okay.
Do you know what a bushranger is?
I assume he's like a wilderness cop.
Jim. Ned Kelly, a bushranger is an outlaw.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll have to, yeah. Okay. I'll look him up once we get off the podcast.
Yeah, so he wasn't like Robin Hood. He didn't steal from the rich to give the poor. He stole. He pretty
Ned
much,
Kelly.
he stole and shot people. And was a bad guy. But Australians, we love our bushrangers. The history and just all that goes along with them. So look up Ned Kelly, educate yourself for next time we come on the podcast. I'll ask you questions.
I don't mean to be rude, but isn't all of Australia basically like it was started as a penal colony? Like,
Pretty much, yes. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm not going to throw any shade your way directly, but I just know the origins of your island nation there.
Yeah, but if you want some interesting reading about Australia, is look up famous Australian bushrangers.
Okay.
And some of them have just got some really interesting stories on what they did. And so there's like your old outlaw, Jesse James, Billy the Kid,
Yeah.
all that sort
The
of stuff.
cowboys and outlaws.
Yeah, that type of thing, but just in our early history. So all the Australians listening to this are just shaking their head going, cannot believe Jim didn't know who Ned Kelly was.
Like I said, he had a steakhouse in Urbana, Illinois. That's all I knew about him. They had a really tasty, very warm cookie for dessert that I remember there. But yeah, I went there a few times.
And they now have Ned Whiskey. So
There you go.
actually, I'm gonna talk about Ned Whiskey on the next episode. Therefore, between now and the next episode, Jim, you need to go and look up who Ned Kelly is, and you need to figure out who Ned Kelly is, because on the next podcast, I'm going to be talking about Ned Whiskey and some of the marketing that they're doing, which is absolutely brilliant.
Very cool. I'll definitely have to bone up. You can quiz me at the next episode.
Yeah. Bone up means something completely different in Australia too.
Yeah, it means learn. And just for the Australians, it means learn in North American English. So
Yeah, in Australia, it means something completely different.
I can imagine.
Okay, Jim, this has been fun. Great way to end the podcast. And I look forward to talking about Ned Kelly next week.
All right. Sounds good, Tyson.
Okay, bye.